Greetings to all fans of good movies. In this video, I'm going to tell you about a 2007 science fiction thriller, Sunshine.
Are you an angel? Has the time come?
Sun is rapidly dying, Earth is cooling, and humanity is on the brink of extinction. Space engineers launch a project under the codename Icarus, mission to reignite the sun. The first expedition, sent 7 years ago, disappeared before it could reach the star. Recently, scientists sent a second mission. Their cargo? A massive stellar bomb, with the goal of restarting the celestial body's nuclear reaction. 8 astronauts, riding on the bomb, are speeding towards the dying sun. They've been in flight for 16 months now. The crew controls the ship using voice commands. Dr. Searle, the mission psychologist, is in the observation room and asks Icarus, the ship's AI, to adjust the window filter so he can view the sunlight at the maximum safe intensity. Later, Dr. Searle shares his feelings with the crew. During a meal, the Captain Kaneda informs everyone that the ship has drifted so far from Earth that in less than 24 hours, they'll lose contact with a home. He suggests they send one final message to their loved ones. One by one, the astronauts record their messages. Physicist Robert Capa delays recording his message, causing technician Mace to miss his chance to send one to his own family. Tensions flare, and Mace angrily lunges at Capa. Later, the psychologist prescribes 2 hours in the Earth room for Mace to cool off. Now cut off from mission control, the captain bears the heavy responsibility of the mission's success. He's deeply anxious, but does his best not to show it. Fortunately, all of Icarus's systems are functioning properly, and oxygen production is steady, though with a small buffer.
Guys, you want to see something?
Vessel's pilot Cassie notices that the ship is approaching Mercury's trajectory. The whole crew gathers in the observation room to witness the planet against the backdrop of the blazing sun. Later, while on duty, Deputy Captain Harvey picks up a faint signal. The signal was intercepted due to their proximity to Mercury. The planet's iron-rich surface reflected the transmission, directing it to Icarus's receiver. Gathering the team, Harvey plays the recording.
It's the Icarus 1.
The unexpected news leaves the crew in shock. After some calculations, they pinpoint the source of the signal. The captain reveals that with a slight course adjustment, they could approach Icarus 1 and possibly aid the first crew. The team is divided. Mace is adamantly against the idea, arguing that their mission is far more important than the fate of any crew. There won't be a third mission, and humanity's survival rests solely on their shoulders. Dr. Searle agrees, noting that they only have one bomb, which means one chance to succeed. However, if they manage to pilot Icarus 1, their chances of success would double. Captain proposes that physicist Robert Capa, the most qualified for this decision, should make the call. After running multiple simulations of the bomb drop, the chances of success remain below 40%. Robert shares his conclusion with the captain.
Searle's argument is sound. 2 last hopes are better than 1.
Kaneda decides to alter course, heading toward Icarus 1. Shortly after, alarms blare aboard the ship. The course adjustment has shifted their angle of approach to the sun. During the maneuver, the navigator Trey forgot to realign the protective shield. As a result, some sections of the shield have burned out. To fix the issue, astronauts will need to go on a spacewalk to manually repair the damage. Task requires 2 people. Kaneda volunteers himself, and Mace insists on Capa's candidacy. This repair can only be performed while staying in the shadow of the shield. To ensure this, Cassie switches the ship's controls to manual, adjusting the angle to provide maximum shade. Astronauts exit the ship. Reaching the shield, they find 4 damaged panels. Despite the extreme heat, they manage to fix the first section. Suddenly, alarm sounds again. Due to the increased tilt of the ship, one of the communication antennas has slipped out of the shadow, causing a fire in the oxygen garden. In this critical situation, Icarus takes control, slowly adjusting the ship back to its original flight angle.
Kaneda, Kappa, get back to the airlock now.
Kaneda refuses to return until the job is done. The crew realizes that under direct sunlight, they won't survive much longer. With just one panel left to fix, Captain orders Kappa to return to the ship, while he stays behind to finish the repairs, sacrificing his life in the process.
Shield rotation complete.
Meanwhile, fire in the oxygen garden intensifies. Mace makes a drastic decision to extinguish the flames with a controlled explosion. He opened the spare oxygen tanks simultaneously, sealing off the compartment beforehand. Explosion burns out the remaining oxygen, snuffing out the fire. Deputy Captain Harvey takes command of the ship. At a briefing, he reports that the protective shield is fully repaired and their payload is intact. However, the garden has been completely destroyed. There's not enough oxygen to even deliver payload to the sun, let alone make it back to Earth.
We now have no choice but to rendezvous with Icarus 1.
Crew approaches Icarus 1. They align the shields and then dock with the ship. Upon boarding, team splits up for inspection. Harvey checks the oxygen room, Kepa inspects the payload, Searle examines the living quarters, and Mace surveys control room. The ship is without power, and everything inside is covered in ash. One by one, good news arrives from the crew. Oxygen room is intact. The ferns have grown to an enormous size. The payload is also in good condition. They even find water on board. Only Mace reports significant damage to the ship's control system. He manages to play final entry in the ship's log, which was recorded over 6 years ago.
It is not our place to challenge God.
Soon after, Searle discovers crew of Icarus 1. Burnt bodies of the astronauts are in the observation room. Based on their positions, Searle theorizes that they intentionally burned themselves alive. Suddenly, a violent jolt separates the two ships. Astronauts rush to the airlock, only to find it badly damaged. Docking is no longer possible.
We're screwed.
No, we're not.
Mace finds a functional spacesuit, meaning one crew member can still make the jump back to Icarus 2. Without hesitation, he chooses Kappa, as he's the only one who knows how to handle the bomb. Harvey panics, refusing to accept decision. As highest-ranking officer, he demands the suit, insisting that without a captain, mission is doomed. Astronauts disagree, and Kappa disobeys the order. Mace then comes up with another idea. Align the airlocks and have everyone leap across, pressed tightly together. It'll be freezing, but it might work. Astronauts strip thermal insulation from the ship and wrap themselves in it. However, there's a catch. The automation system is down. One person will have to stay behind and open the airlock manually. Searle volunteers.
Hey, Kappa. We're only stardust.
He helps the crew prepare for the jump, then opens the airlock. As the astronauts leap, they collide with debris and scatter. Harvey is left drifting in space. Kappa manages to grab Mace, though the technician suffers severe frostbite on his arm, but survives. Icarus 2 detaches from Icarus 1 and pulls away. Dr. Searle returns to the observation room, sits on a bench, and puts on his sunglasses. Over the comms, Cassie says her goodbyes, telling him she will never forget his sacrifice. Sunlight floods the room, turning the psychologist to ash. Back on Icarus 2, crew inspects the airlock and discovers it had been manually opened. All the astronauts were accounted for, except for Trey, who had been sedated in the medbay. Suspicion falls on him, especially since it was his error that caused the shield's misalignment during the course change. Biologist Corazon also informs the crew that they have just enough oxygen to deliver the payload, if they lose one more crew member.
At least now we know what happened on Icarus 1. The same thing that's happening here.
Mace suggests killing the traitor. A vote is held, with the crew having to choose between one astronaut's life and the fate of humanity. Everyone except Cassie supports the idea of executing Trey. Girl breaks down in tears, unable to make such a decision. Mace apologizes to her and walks to the medbay, grabbing a scalpel. Mace blames Kappa for all the deaths, arguing that it was his decision to alter the course. A fight breaks out, but with the low oxygen levels, The men quickly exhaust themselves and collapse to the floor. Later, Kappa runs calculations on the remaining oxygen. Icarus informs him that the crew will die in 16 hours, but the mission requires 19 hours to complete. Confused, Kappa asks the computer to double-check, as only 4 crew members remain, which should leave enough oxygen. Icarus corrects him, stating that there are 5 people on board. Unknown 5th person is in the observation room.
Who are you?
A last man alone with God.
When Kappa sees the charred figure, he realizes it's Pinbacker, the captain of Icarus I. Captain's gone mad and sabotaged his own ship. During the docking, he secretly boarded Icarus II. Pinbacker, now deranged, believes that being the last living human will lead him to meet God. He also sabotages Icarus II by removing the computer from the coolant, causing the systems to overheat and fail. Ship stops heading toward the sun and begins drifting into orbit. Later in the oxygen room, crazed captain kills unaware Corazon.
Icarus.
Power on the ship goes out. Mace enters the command center to diagnose the malfunction. Using a portable battery, he powers the computer and finds a bloodied Kappa in the airlock. Through the suit's radio, they manage to communicate.
What the hell is going on? Pinbacker is on board. He's trying to stop the mission.
After this, Mace heads to the engineering section, discovering extensive damage to the main system. He dives into the coolant to manually lower the processors back into the liquid, sacrificing himself to restart Icarus's systems. Meanwhile, Pinbacker chases Cassie through the ship. She hides in the payload bay. Kappa, now wearing a spacesuit, manually detaches the bomb from the ship. Payload hurtles toward the sun at incredible speed. All that remains is for the physicist to activate the nuclear reactor. Due to the intense velocity, space-time begins to distort inside the payload bay, preventing Pinbacker from stopping him. Kappa reaches the reactor and initiates the process. For a brief moment, time freezes, and Guy feels as if he can physically touch the sunlight. 8 minutes later, the first rays of sunlight warm the snow-covered Earth. Thanks to everyone who watched until the end. On this channel, you can always find retellings of good movies.